Hey guys, Cloud here with an overview for my Explodey Stampede build. Atlas progress has been going smoothly and I'm working my way through tier 7 maps now. Hopefully I'll be getting to endgame content soon. But in the meantime I wanted to put out a quick guide on the build for entry-level mapping, because I think this is a very easy build to get started with. I'll break down how the build functions for both clear and single target, and cover my gem set, passive tree, and gearing choices. Our main clearing ability is Stampede, supported by Armour Explosion. That's the screen clearing AOE you're looking at right now. Armour Explosion creates a damaging AOE effect when you fully break armor. If the explosion itself is able of fully breaking armor, then it can chain react to other nearby targets on its own. In order to enable Armour Explosion to fully break armor, we use either the Devastate support, which fully breaks armor on heavy stun, or get the same effect with the passive tree notable, which provides 50% armor break on heavy stun, plus nodes in the cluster above it for 100% increased armor break. A 100% increase is a doubling, and doubling 50% is a full armor break. Just to reiterate, you only need one of these solutions, either Devastate or the passive tree nodes. So with that, Armour Explosion can fully break armor as long as it can heavy stun on its own. In order to enable it to heavy stun, we get stun bonus nodes on the passive tree, and the Titan Ascendancy's Crushing Blow makes it much easier to essentially guarantee a second hit will yield a heavy stun against any trash mobs that you don't one-shot. So, the end result is that we hit something with Stampede, heavy stun it, which procs a full armor break, which procs the Armour Explosion, which then ideally heavy stuns everything that it itself hits, and thus repeats the process among everything within radius. Now, why do we use Stampede? We could technically use any ability we can heavy stun with. But for one, Stampede hits multiple times, which ensures your initial explosion procs, and two, it's a movement skill, and the best clear skills are skills that move you while you kill. And three, one of its characteristics is that it blows up the jagged ground you leave in your path, meaning you get extra coverage over any stragglers you're dragging behind you as you stampede around. Single target is very simple. Our single target abilities are Hammer of the Gods and Perfect Strike. We stun the target with Mace Strikes or whatever skill, pop Infernal Cry, drop the hammer, and perfectly time a Perfect Strike to deal huge damage. It's a little more demanding if we choose to use Devastate support and Exploit Weakness support on our Hammer of the Gods, because we're then required to Stampede to trigger the armor break for Exploit Weakness. And just by the way, when you aim Perfect Strike, make sure you aim for the feet, because that's where the enemy's hitbox actually is. If you aim at the body, sometimes you're liable to actually be aiming behind the enemy's model. Alright, so let's take a look at gems. Mace Strike is our normal attack that we use to build up stun against single targets, and also just pick off stragglers. So we support it foremost with Overpower for more stun buildup, Martial Tempo for more attack speed, which is a multiplier and more stun buildup, and then likewise also Rage to generate some rage to boost our main single target abilities when we do drop them. And then we put on Close Combat just for some extra damage. Stampede is our main ability, which we support with Armour Explosion as previously shown. And we scale that with Fire Infusion for extra fire damage, Elemental Focus for more elemental damage, and Fire Penetration for more fire damage. So notably, these three support gems are all scaling foremost Armour Explosion. We don't have Avatar of Fire, so we're not actually really scaling Stampede itself with these support gems. But that's okay because our main purpose here is to trigger and scale Armour Explosions for clear. Perfect Strike uses Window of Opportunity for more damage, but gives you a shorter perfect timing window. And then Eternal Flame and Searing Flame boost the Ignite. And Primal Armament just scales more weapon elemental damage. Hammer of the Gods we use at the same time as Perfect Strike, and often that's enough to one-shot rares, in fact. And we just scale that with basically our leftover scalers, especially physical ones. So we use Fist of War, Brutality, which is more fizz and disables any elemental damage, so we couldn't use this on either of our other skills here. Exploit Weakness to consume the broken armor for a big damage boost. And Heavy Swing for more melee physical damage. So again, this would not be able to apply to Perfect Strike or Stampede, where we're trying to get Armor Explosion damage. Infernal Cry is what we used before our two main single target abilities. So this gives us a major damage as fire boost based on enemy power. Unique monsters always have 20 power, so we get the full 100% damage as fire boost. So we always want to make sure we use these before our Hammer of the Gods and Perfect Strike. And we also get additional more damage boost from Premeditation support, and hopefully we'll have generated some rage from our Mace Strike, rage support, in which case we'll generate a little more rage from Rage and Cry, and then consume 10 rage to boost the empower attack by another 30%. Unfortunately, it checks this before generating the rage from Rage and Cry. So you need to have 10 rage at the time when you cast Infernal Cry in order to get that bonus. After that, Shockwave Totem is a optional setup which gives you another route to rage by giving you 2 rage regeneration, as well as some life regeneration from Font of Rage and Font of Blood, respectively. And then we just put Ancestral Urgency on it to make it cast a lot faster, because otherwise it's just too slow to even be worth pressing the button. As utility, I'm running Leap Slam. I almost never use it nowadays, but it's useful to create this Consecrated Ground from Holy Descent support, which gives you 5% regeneration per second. So it's nice if you have like an emergency need for healing, and then just Inspiration to make it cost a little bit less. So after that, we have the buffs. Herald of Ash is actually the most important one, I think. That's going to make your clear as smooth as possible by igniting anything that didn't get killed by the explosions to ensure that they die. And then the most important thing of all the persistent buffs is actually Cannibalism support, which gives you 4% life recovery on kill. This is your sustain. So while you're clearing, you're going to be taking tons and tons of hits, and you're going to be instantly recovering it by killing things and cannibalizing back that life. After that, I would probably say Overwhelming Presence is the most important, to have reduced stun threshold on your enemies. That'll help you get easier stuns. After that, I would say Scavenged Plating is probably the most important for the armor boost. It's especially more important during clear, where it stacks up to 10 stacks for 40% more armor. That's a lot. And then we can put Persistence on that for more duration. And then your lowest priority boosts are Vitality and Herbalism, which just give you either regeneration or better life flasks. The amount of persistent buffs you can fit depends on how much spirit you can find on your gear, but it's generally not that important as long as you have Cannibalism. That's what you really need. And then I would recommend, if you can, to get Overwhelming Presence and Scavenged Plating. They're both very good buffs. Alright, so let's take a look at the passive tree. And first I want to preface this by saying this is not the end-all be-all of passive trees for this build. You want to certainly adjust it for your own needs, and there may just be some choices here which are not the greatest. I am developing this build as I go along, and hopefully by the time I get to endgame, we'll have a much cleaner template. With that said, in general, we want to take armor nodes for physical defense, as we're going to be taking a lot of small trash mob hits, damage nodes for offense, and increased AOE nodes to expand our Armour Explosion's radius to improve its chaining capabilities. Note that Armour Explosion has tags for attack, AOE, and fire, but not melee, so it should scale off only bonuses to the former, and not melee bonuses. We of course also need to take stun build-up nodes to better enable our stun-based build. However, take care not to overinvest in stun. You only need as much as you need to be adequately stunning your targets. While we're here, the Cranial Impact Notable generates an endurance charge when you heavy stun a rare or unique. This is what gets you 2 empowers out of a single Infernal Cry, so that you can wombo combo drop the hammer and perfect strike one after the other. Also, I found these stun threshold nodes made a noticeable difference towards not getting stunned, though it's not clear to me yet just how much stun threshold is necessary. And while we do path by Unwavering Stance, I would personally never suggest taking it, as the burst mobility of dodge roll can make the difference when escaping telegraphed one-shots. It's also essential for roll cancelling out of your stampedes. For keystones, we take Resolute Technique to solve for accuracy. This might be a late game drop if we can find the gear and passive budget to solve for both accuracy and crit. Bulwark is an optional choice. As I understand it, dodge roll can only iframe basic attack hits, which are often fizz-based, and we're already strong against those. So I think Bulwark is a wise pick, as the most deadly attacks will probably be telegraphed boss slams, which cannot be iframed. Giant's Blood is an endgame goal which allows you to wield your two-handed main hand weapon in one hand so that you can offhand a shield for much better survivability. However, it triples the requirements of weapons, so it requires a lot of strength on gear and also likely passive points spent on strength as well. There's not much to the gearing strategy. You want as big of a fizz-based two-hander as you can get to maximize your damage. You want it to be fizz-based since all your damage is fizz-based. Perfect Strike and Armour Explosion both convert from fizz to fire. The rest of your gear is for resists, armor rating, and life. Resistances in particular are incredibly important. Be sure to use your rune slots to gear up resistances. If you're having trouble staying alive, it's probably your resistances that are holding you back, especially Chaos Resistance, which is very difficult to find early on. Any damage you can pick up along the way is a bonus, and Spirit on the amulet or chest piece will allow you to run more persistent buffs, but isn't necessary. I did the entirety of the campaign through early tier maps using solo self-found, mostly shit-tacular gear that I either dropped, crafted, or bought from vendors. This is my mace for finishing Cruel and entering mapping, which I bought from a vendor, by the way. Make sure to check the gear vendor every level throughout the campaign. Sometimes you find some really nice stuff. I eventually geared out enough strength to run a shield with Giant's Blood, and that, along with transitioning some passive points I'd previously used for damage into defense instead, has made a tremendous difference in survivability. Most of this gear I actually bought with fewer modifiers and slammed some really nice resist rolls onto it, at which point I had too much resists. So I'm running a Thrill Steel now for the extra speed, and it's actually working out quite nicely because this build is a bit on the slow side, especially if you want to take some of the nodes that reduce your attack speed. My hope is that the character as I have it set up right now will be able to progress to the top tier maps, but only time will tell. So when it does, I'll let you guys know. Also, I'm looking to stream more of my play. So if you have any questions or just want to see what I'm up to with this build or anything else I start working on, follow me on Twitch. You can find that link along with my work in progress passive tree and gem links in the description below. Thanks for watching. Oh, also be careful because sometimes doing this in Breach crashes your entire map instance and you lose all your portals.